I want to give you some time. I want to give you the floor here because I also just want to talk about how much I enjoy watching Breanna Stewart play basketball. Breanna Stewart is now a member of the New York Liberty, and she's going to get to play with Sabrina Ionescu. And who's the French point guard? I always forget her
Marine
name. I'm like,
Johannes.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy too because I don't know if you've gotten to see it today. It's also been
And
insane today.
yeah, and like to be clear, I'm a very casual WNBA fan. Like like you know what I mean. Like I love the league. I love watching every single game that I watch. But I'm a casual in this circumstance, like
And that's
across the
okay. I'm
board.
here to teach you. I'm here
Mark
to
is the
learn
expert
you a thing.
here. Yes.
So yeah, let's put it like this. They have Sabrina Ionescu, who I would probably consider their fourth best player now, which is kind of wild. So it's Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, who was the MVP in 2021, Breanna Stewart, who is a former MVP, who is at worst the second best player on planet Earth. And it seems possible Benaj Laney, who is a former all-star, who is a really good player, top 20, 25 player in the league. It seems like she's going back in a trade. Potentially that hasn't been confirmed yet, but they added Courtney Vandersloot today, who is probably the best point guard in the league, her Chelsea Gray. I mean, you could go Skylar Diggins-Smith too, but she's out right now. But point being, like, they now have an all-star starting five. And it is really fun and interesting to look at because all of like the great eras of the WNBA have had super teams and been marked by that. Like the Minnesota Lynx in the Los Angeles Sparks, when they were going back in the mid 2010s, you had obviously Maya Moore, Rebecca Brunson, Sylvia Fowles, Simone Augustus. Like that's 4 Hall of Famers. For the Sparks, you have Candace Parker and Chelsea Gray and Nneka Ogwumike, who is still like, I mean, I had her, I think, 4th in MVP voting last year. She was really good. I had Candace, I think, 3rd in MVP voting last year. Like, again, like point being, still really good players. That was another team that you have. And there's other, I mean, obviously tons of talented role players. Now we have 2 teams where you can legitimately say both of their starting fives could start the All-Star game. A, that just doesn't happen very often. B, it really sets the table for a lot of interesting stuff to happen this year. I think kind of similarly to, and this is going off on a big riff, so just bear with me, but like, I'm really interested because what makes this so fun and interesting to look at, A, the competitive talent is going to be very fun. It's a huge storyline fall throughout the year. As much as I think it will rub some deeper, hardcore people the wrong way, like, oh, you have all this talent on 2 teams, like, blah, 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 like, for the standpoint of like building narratives and stories and seeing how things play out, I think that matters a ton for the league and seeing where this is going to go. The bigger thing is the 2024 and 2025 WNBA drafts are like the next big thing in basketball for the W. All of the, like, obviously, like Aaliyah Boston and Haley Jones are going to probably be the top 2 picks this year, and they matter a ton in where their college basketball is at right now. But the biggest stars in college basketball, for the most part, are people who are freshmen, sophomores right now. Like, obviously, Juju Watkins is going to USC next year, and she'll be there for 4 years, presumably, unless she doesn't transfer. The 2024 and 2025 draft is bringing in like the first real wave, at least in my experience and looking back and understanding the league, of really high level shot creators on the wing, because that's just not really a big archetype that exists in women's basketball right now. You're going to have a lot of high level, just on ball dribble creators like Olivia Miles, who plays for Notre Dame right now. She could enter she's a sophomore right now. She could enter the W tomorrow and be at worst the 5th best passer in the league. Like, she's unreal with the ball in her hands. So I think what makes it interesting is like you have these two teams that are going to be like the clear-cut title contenders. You have a couple teams that are branching off and saying, okay, we're going in a new direction because we have to. What does that look like for the next 2 years of them building and what they get in the draft and how they try and approach things? Because obviously, draft is a little bit different, but I think you're starting to see things play out differently. But it's really fun, man. It's very fun to look at. And mainly it's just like for the Liberty, Breanna Stewart is one of the best defenders I've ever seen in basketball. Like, she can do everything.
I've never seen someone with her frame.
She's 6'4", 6'5", with a 7'1" wingspan. Like,
watching her like fly around the court with her length is like unbelievable. It's just like we talk about like the way that some players like change the geometry of the court. Like she genuinely
She is.
changes the geometry of the court in the women's game. It's unbelievable.
And what makes it fun too is that she has so a like she like she I think I voted her for defensive player of the year last year. I have an official vote by the way, not meant as a flex, but just like so when I'm saying
Love it.
voted, I really mean it.
Love it.
But like yes, like she was that good for the Storm last year. They ran part of what's fun with the W2 is like there's so much scheme versatility defensively. Just because again, like archetype differences, the way the game is played is a little bit different. Um, and like so she can do everything. She can blitz really well. She can switch really well. She's a fantastic weak side rim protector. She can play the five as a rim protector. She can play close to the level. You had Jonquel Jones, who was 6'6", who has a good wingspan. I did not vote her all defense last year. I think she's a really good defender at her best. But like you add that layered rim protection like that, and that's really enticing. So like think of it like, I mean,
It's
like
like Giannis and Brooke Lopez.
exactly. Except more mobile almost, which is kind of crazy. And so that's a ton. And then you have, I mean, Sabrina is an incredibly dynamic pick and roll guard, pull up shooter, really good playmaker and passer, knows how to move without the ball. Courtney Vandersloot is like, I don't know how you even make a comparison for her. Like she is one of just the best east-west dribblers I've ever seen. Like she's really good getting into the paint, going just straight north-south, but she's elite at keeping her dribble alive, creating anything and everything from anywhere. I have no idea what to think on how they're going to play yet. What helps with the Aces, so like the Aces adding Candace Parker, like I can look at that and be like, okay, I think they're going to do a lot more stuff in enabling her as a playmaker because she's one of the best on the planet. And, you know, you're going to incorporate a lot more DHO, high post stuff, trying to be aggressive and incorporating more movement in the half court to really open up her playmaking. But with the Liberty, it's like, I mean, it's all bets are off for me because that's just an entirely different team now when you add that kind of talent. That's 3 top 10 players in one off season. So yeah, it's very exciting.
It's going to be actually like really interesting to watch to see how
Actually,
like all of them mesh together as much as anything.
I want to riff on this too because part of what is really cool about this is like a lot of players wanted to go to New York because of what they've done to rebuild. They were in a very dire place 3 or 4 years ago before they hired a completely new front office, had changed in ownership, of course, with the Tsai family coming in. And I talked to Jonathan Kolb, who's their GM, probably about a month ago. Just on because he's been there since they started this rebuild. He was the youngest GM hired at the time. I think he was like 32, 33 when he got hired. And so he's been here this whole process. And like part of what's cool and just seeing all these teams throughout, you're seeing more ownership buy-in. You're seeing what that does. Like people are excited to go to New York because they've completely revamped everything there. Like they went from playing in, I think they played not at Westchester, but like similar venue to where the Westchester Knicks play. And like now, okay, they play at Barclays. They have their own facilities at Barclays. They don't share facilities with the Nets. Like they have their own stuff there. They've worked really hard to incorporate a lot more with what housing is because housing is part of the CBA. And it's just like, I don't know. I think there's being around the W and being as deep in it as I have has given me a greater appreciation and understanding for how much more goes into being a GM or being an executive with the team and building a team outside of just getting the players there and having the players there. Like you have to do all these things to make them want to come there. And I think seeing that really play out has been interesting and cool. And mainly, I mean, I'm ecstatic to watch this team play. It's gonna be fun. I didn't even mention Marino Johannes. Like I have to send you more clips, but like Marino Johannes is legitimately the most fun basketball player I've ever watched.
The best
In anything.
The absolute best.
Her New York Liberty stuff is wildly fun and entertaining. Watching her in the French league is insane. Like she'll take floaters from like 25 feet away and bank them. Like, I mean, she's like running one-legged 3-pointers from, going to her left. Like, and she's actually, it's funny. I tracked it last year. She's better as a movement shooter, like pulling up and all this wonky stuff than actually on actual like catch and shoots. just some of the most unreal touch because she played water polo growing up. So she
That
has
rules.
like
That's
just
awesome.
insane, like she will like one hand whip pass cross court with just like a wrist flick. Like it's not like doesn't even have to
Yeah.
like fully extend her arm. Like she just has some of the best palm control of a ball I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
that's huge in having touch and doing a lot of things. And
And like
it's
when it's her and Sabrina out there, because Sabrina's like basketball IQ is just like insane.
Mhm.
Like it's just like the most ridiculous thing. Like just watching those two like figure it out, like it's just like, oh my god, like these are two just like absolute geniuses playing basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a blast. And I mean, that's what makes it exciting too, because like Breanna Stewart is a savant. Jonquel Jones knows her game inside and out. Like I've mentioned it before in this pod multiple times, talking to Jonquel about like how difficult it is sometimes to be a great shooter while also being maybe the best post presence in the league is like, that's one of my favorite conversations I've ever had, just talking the game with somebody. Um,
Mhm.
it's going to be very fun watching what Sandy Brondello does with this group because there are so many things you can do with them, which is what makes it fun. Like, I think they're going to have to get really creative with staggering. Obviously, like anytime we've seen any kind of super team in a game have to figure things out, a lot of it comes down to how do we figure out, bench unit and getting the most out of, making our stars still feel like they can do the things that they do. So it's going to be very fun to watch.